Glossop is starting to come together now. Stay tuned and all will be revealed. Well, good afternoon everyone and welcome back to Piccadilly. Now, you could probably see I have gone ahead and done some more. Well, the most obvious thing in the room is the fact I've got roofs on there now. You probably saw in the last video I had the rafters on there, and that has now, I wanted that effect where you could see the rafters from underneath. I do need to paint that white underneath where my thumb is, but that will get done. And obviously that building as well has now got a roof. So as we come round to the back of the shop, we've got these lean-to areas, which is obviously the loading bay. Apparently the whole of this section here is a B&M, all of that. But the post office is that little bit towards the front of the building. So taking a closer look at these, you can see these shutters have been painted up, so they look quite worn. And then as we come around the corner, we've got this louvre set of doors with fans above. So that implies there's either a refrigeration unit inside there, possibly a chiller, maybe even an area which just needs to have the air controlled. And then you've got these strange things on the roof. I'll be honest with you, I don't know what they could be. I mean, it could be more air conditioning. If that's a fridge in there or freezer, you know, that would obviously need its own separate unit. Maybe they're just air vents. I don't know. If you know what they are, please say. Let's have a look at the real thing. So there they are. And yeah, they do look a little bit on the strange side, but hopefully you can see the fans just by the trolleys there and sort of the thing. And obviously this section here has also got the roof on. Again, that does need to be painted white underneath there. And you might also notice that doorway there. If I show you the real thing, there you go. So I've altered it so it's more in keeping with what the real thing is like. But anyway, the other thing I've done, you might just be able to make it out up there. There is an RSJ in there, and I've now put that into that just above that section there and filled in this gap with this strip here just above there. So now starting to think about the roof structure and the columns that are going to go in here. Now if I show you, we've got these, I mean these remind me of the old Hornby ones, to be honest. You might remember from long ago, back in the 1980s, the station canopy, the Hornby station canopy, and I'm pretty sure it had bracing pieces like these. Not painted the same as that, but certainly that sort of triangle shape with a circle in the middle. But you can see it's quite a lattice work. Now, I had to think really carefully, what am I going to do? Because if I was to try and put in all the columns and pillars that are in there, it's just going to look silly. It's just, you know, as this is a squashed up version, I mean, this is pretty much guesswork from what I can work out from pictures and heights of things and things like that. So this is my interpretation of it. But you can see this piece of strip of paper I've got down here, and there's marks. They will represent the different pillars that are going to go in our columns. And I've worked it out that is going to be 43 millimeters between each column. Now let's have a look at the column first of all. Right, there we go. That's the first of the columns and supports. And this has been done on the filament printers where you've got two halves, and I've stuck them back to back. And the reason for that is because obviously this is printed flat on the bed, and these pieces going across here, the infill pieces, they are not as thick as the main structure pieces. So I wanted to replicate that. Now you might say to me, John, didn't you get a resin printer a few weeks ago? And the answer is yes. But there's a couple of reasons for that. I don't know how strong the resin would be for this sort of thing. And if I knocked it and broke it, that would be really annoying to have to start all over again. Well, these are the three main different types of part, if I like. There are some more parts to be done. But basically these are the main canopies, and as I said, they are stuck back to back. And then we've got these pieces, which are, there aren't many of those, but there are occasions when it's literally just the roof structure without this column. And I think, if I'm right, there's one on the outside, and there are more. Well, there's certainly one there. There's another one there. And there are a few dotted about in varying places. So there's actually another one just there. Now, each section, as far as I can see, is split into 3. Now, this is a strange one to start on, to be honest, because these 2 sections look similar sizes, whereas that one's different. Now, if I was to start fiddling about with trying to get the spaces in the right places, I think I'm going to drive myself insane. So what I've done is I'm taking the gaps that I've got between each one. If you remember, there's 43 millimeters between columns, and there are different types of infill parts. So you've got some parts where you've got all 3 parts with a cross in, which is mainly outside. There are other parts where you've got like a slope, the cross, and then another slope. And there are even some without any infill at all. So it's just a case of making each part separately, printing them off separately, and just assembling it individually. I'll show you how I'm going to go about building all this gubbins. Talk to you soon. Welcome back. So hopefully you can see what I'm aiming at here. So we've got this piece here, and you hopefully notice that these cross pieces are slightly lower than the rest. So when I turn it over, it looks like the thinner parts, and that's going to go in there. You will notice then I also put these little pieces either side here, and that will give me a stop to rest on. But it is important to make sure that these are absolutely straight. So every tiny little while I'm looking down it from one end, just to make sure that all is good. Now I can see from there that's not seated properly, so just take that down a bit further. Make sure it's on that ledge. It's all come off now, isn't it? It would do, wouldn't it? It's on camera, isn't it? Now I've had to do some modifications. If you look at the actual station, you'd realise the canopy is half the length of this building. But again, if I was going to stop it here, and it just, for 3 canopies section, it just looked a bit silly. So I've taken it one step further. I was thinking about taking it to the end, but Glossop doesn't have a full length canopy on the building section, so I've stopped it short, and then in the hope that it will all come together. There we go. That was complicated, I tell you. So as you can see, I carried on with this structure going through the middle there. It got a little bit more complicated at the end there. It's not quite exact, but it hopefully just gives the flavour of what it's actually like in there. And then we've got these pieces coming this way, and then the ones on the top, they're like rafters, a little bit like what I did just here. So it lifts the roof off the frame, so to speak, so that it will be a little bit of an air gap above each of the frames. And so I'll get that done. There is a longer skylight around this area here, and then seemingly a shorter one at that point. Along the front edge here, it's going to be an interesting concept, because it seems like it's not bunting, but it's, I'm sure you're familiar with it. You have this like little valance running down the front edge. Well, let me show you. Yeah, I kind of like that. So you can see it's, obviously we've got these like panels running down, and there seems to be a drilled out section just above each of the slots. So I don't think that's going to 3D print very well. So it might be just easier to do it by hand with a scalpel and a little drill. I might just scratch those marks in. I don't know at the moment, but you can also see from that shot, we've got this skylight there. And if I just pan round, you'll see there is another one just there, 4 panes wide. So that should fit nicely into that area just there. And then obviously the longer one will probably go between those two rafters just there. But we'll have a think about that, and I'll get back to you very shortly. Well, there we go. That's about as much as I'm going to get done for this video. You are lucky people. You get another one on a Friday. But anyway, what have I done? Well, let's take a closer look, shall we? Well, just lifting out the platform, as you can see. Let's take that bit out, because that still is loose. So you can see there, I've got that valance running along the top edge of the canopy there. Obviously the roof is in and the windows are in. There's an extra window just here, which I didn't realise at the time, but you can see through there to the actual substructure. Not so much at that point. Actually, you see the most interesting bit from that angle there, don't you? But when you look at it from underneath, you can see, as I showed you in a previous video. I've also got that structure on the end. That does need a little bit of paint on the top surface at the top here. This is not complete by any means. It needs all sorts of bits inside there. And you might notice the doorway, and that fits underneath one of the structure without the pillar. And this piece, you might think, well, there's nothing happened to that. Well, there is, because this piece of wall here was finishing on the platform, and I looked at it and I thought, that can't be right. And then when I checked it against the real thing, and I realised actually that was a complete wall. So let's put that back into place and you can see. So there it is in position. I do think that does look an awful lot more realistic than having the wall finish on top of the platform. I can't see anybody would want to do that. It does not make any sense. So I've also got this building in here now. Let's have a closer look at that. So we've got three different types of buildings, which that one being a pub. I can't remember what these other two are, but you can see there are three different types of brickwork. So we've got block there, ashlar type one in the middle, and we've got the same sort of brick as what's on the actual station. Don't worry about that. I think what I'll do is just paint over it, just dab, 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 tiny little dots just to blend that brickwork back in. If not, I'll recover that part. It won't be a problem. And goes around the back. You can see it was quite an interesting build there. That part there is going to have a flat roof. This where my thumb is, and in between that one there is a bit of a shed. It's hard to see because I printed it in black, and that's so I could get both printers doing things as opposed to one sitting there waiting for something to happen. Now, for those of you who are in the know, you'll realise that this is, I think it's the Star Pub. Now, there is another doorway here, so this building would be moved that way a bit more, and then this extra doorway fits in here. Now, I am having to make a compromise on this, and as you can see from the curve there, that this is going off the edge of the baseboard at that point there. So I had a decision to make. I could either include the doorway, but then these windows would finish about halfway through there. So I thought that would look a bit odd. So I got rid of the doorway here, and then I can have two whole windows and a door, which I thought would be a lot more acceptable. There are three windows here in reality, and then it goes into another building at the side here, which is still the pub. So obviously the two buildings have been merged into one. But yeah, so I think that would probably be the most sensible of decisions. Now, you'll also realise that I've put a bit of a lip here, so that can then fit in there quite like that. And you can see the scene is really starting to come together. We've got this road scene appearing here now. But I've got pavement here, but here it's smooth. So I wonder what's going up there. Well, we know the car park is going up here, and although the road comes across the top, and there is an entrance to the Star Pub car park at the back here, I think from from a logistics point of view, because the layout will go off scene at that point. I think it would be just easier to have it coming in around this area here and make the car park more believable, if you like. Otherwise, how do people get in and out when I've enclosed it completely? From a modelling point of view in this situation, I don't think that would make a lot of sense. So I will put the entrance down here, but this drop curb is wider than one car's width. So I'll let you have a think about what could be going here, if anything. So I'll leave that one for you to decide. I have got some ideas of what I want to do. But anyway, I think that scene is really coming on quite nicely now. And obviously you can see here, down here I've got all the road markings in around there. They do need the white and yellow lines, and that will be coming up very shortly how I do that, possibly even in the next video as well, along with what's going here. So that's told you there is something. But yeah, I think I will leave the video there. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'm certainly having a lot of fun putting this together. Anyway, I will catch you very, very soon here on Piccadilly. Take care now, and bye for now.